Hey, my name is Gavin Verhey. I'm a principal game designer on Magic the Gathering, which means I design what those cardboard rectangles do. And I was the lead game designer on Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy.
I'm Zakeel Gordon, an executive producer for Tabletop Magic, and I was the product architect of Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy.
I'm Daniel Holt. Like Gavin, I'm a senior game designer on Magic the Gathering. I worked on the Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy Commander decks.
Hello everyone, my name is Dillon Deveney. I'm the principal narrative game designer for the Universes Beyond creative team, and I had the distinct pleasure and honor to be the narrative lead for the Final Fantasy set.
Right on. All right, let's go. Open the floor. Go for it.
Being that this is your fifth or sixth Universe Beyond product coming out, what mistakes or challenges are you hoping to overcome with this set that you had previously?
And can you also put your name and outlet?
Oh, Emmanuel from Nerd Caliber.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say from the design perspective, every set we make, we learn more, right? Look at Magic's out a 30-plus year history now, and we've learned so much since the early days. And when we started Universes Beyond, we were still kind of figuring out how to approach different pieces of it. And now that we've done it several times, we've learned a lot more. I'll kick it over to Dillon in a second to talk about the creative and what we learned. But from like a design perspective, Final Fantasy is a game, I'll give you one example. Final Fantasy is a game with a lot of very complex stories, a lot of very complex characters. Trying to make any one character show off the totality of their story is an impossible task, right? Because every character will go through huge transformations. So one of the things that we really focused on for this set that I think is an improvement over some previous Universes Beyond choices was what I call the snapshot model, where we take a character and kind of take a snapshot of them in time, and that is what the card is based on, right? So it's not trying to encompass all of what Cloud has ever done in the entire story of Final Fantasy VII. It's here's a picture of where he is at this moment. Here's the story that this card is telling at this exact moment, right? And so that was something we focused on that I think helped hone our cards in a little more when figuring out the color identities and the mechanics. So that's one of the small things we did on the design side, but I know on the creative side, there was a ton of iteration that's happened over the course of Universes Beyond.
Yeah, so we've learned a lot with Universes Beyond, mostly about what fans are looking for when they see their favorite IP somewhere else and what they respond well to, what they have to see, what like they really, really want to see. And so part of the amazing pleasure of Final Fantasy was that we had a wide berth of content to select from. So it wasn't so focused that if we missed, any one thing that it would be like a missing ingredient completely. We had the like luxury, almost the decadence of choice with how many things we had to fit in. So in solving the like, oh well maybe if we only have 100 cards for a commander deck and a specific faction, it's really tightly focused. So anything out that, even if it's like something someone expects, if it doesn't fit the theme or the colors, like previously we just had to like cut it. Since we get a full set and a lot of space to explore with the commander decks, we took some time to really like just play and understand exactly what we wanted. We had a wider choice of options, and using the snapshot method, I think we were able to focus on what makes all these characters really, really special once or twice instead of going really deep like 5 or 6 or 7 times, and then opened up more space in the set for all the other things that people want to see, all the whimsical creatures, all the cool monsters, all the epic items, so that way more people could see things that they totally expected to see. Of course, in doing that, it did introduce new challenges that, that we had to eventually solve, but it's certainly, from the creative perspective, everything we learned up to this point came into full motion, especially this is Universes Beyond first standard legal set. This is kind of like a debut of like, all right, this is now what we're about, here's everything we've learned, and hopefully that is on full display when it releases.
Yeah, and speaking specifically from the commander side, we did something new here where we treated each deck as almost its own Universes Beyond. Like this is Final Fantasy 6, 7, 10, and 14. If you pick up that deck, it's keeping the narrative within that deck. Previous Universes Beyond kind of captured the whole IP within the 4 decks, 5 decks, however many. This one was very like working with Dillon to make sure we had reprints and new cards showing off all those tiers that he mentioned of creative, but also working with Gavin on the main set to make sure we're hitting those tier 1 characters the multiple times, getting those snapshot moments across the thing. So this was just where Commander really got to thrive.
And I'll also say at the product level, one of the things that makes this set special is that Square Enix themselves were very involved in the development. So we went, I think, to Japan 5 different times for play tests, for world building sessions. They were heavily involved in the art process. And there's several employees there that, as we're employees for Magic who love Final Fantasy, there are several employees over there that are Final Fantasy fans that love Magic. So just being able to go back and forth with a partner that was willing to give us feedback where we'd send them a list of 10 ideas, and they would say, these 7 are the ones that we think are the best fit for the character, and we tweak these 3, and it just led to a very authentic representation of like what the best execution of bringing the 2 IPs together could result in, and I think that Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy is the best example of that so far.
Since you folks were also crunch playing Final Fantasy 16 to figure out cards and card game design mechanics as well, were you also crunch playing FF14 with the different expansions of past few years as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned in the panel, I did not play Final Fantasy 14 before starting this project, and then I dove really deep into it. I was playing it every day at lunch, after work. I was playing with my friend. We went through 200 hours within like the span of a month, and I still didn't get through all of it. I covered a good chunk, but then you have people in the building like Dillon, who's thankfully our narrative lead, who has been playing it since the beginning, is an active user. So we had those subject matter experts in the building, both on the team and off the team, that we just kept relying on for things like that.
But it was really helpful though, because I've been playing Final Fantasy 14 since its original launch and then its relaunch and its open beta of A Realm Reborn. There's so much that I remember and lovingly remember, and over time that have just kind of faded into history because the new content's coming out. So I have an opinion about what the latest thing is because I'm doing it actively. But Daniel, who was catching up, he's like, I just played this amazing story in Heavensward that came out 8 years ago. And it was great because it reminded us that there are players right now who are only at that part in 14, so they should see something that they should really fall in love with if that's the only part of the game they got to. So it really kind of worked out as like the old timer, and then coming to the scene of finding that handshake between each of the expansions. So I wouldn't call myself grinding. I was just like playing like I normally do. It just worked out that I'm a huge fan, by the way. Like I just play all these naturally, and then when we were working together, we were able to kind of fill in those gaps with each other.
What's your name, Alan?
Patrick Klein, Boss Rush Network. How did this collaboration come to be, and what are your thoughts about like creating expansions on future titles of Final Fantasy, or even going into the Final Fantasy universe with some of the spin-offs?
Yeah, so this collaboration kicked off, I think, mid-pandemic, 2020. We have business development division, and again, I had said some folks on the Square Enix side are fans of Magic, and they were aware, as well as just being in the gaming industry. We made that connection, very early on. I think once Universes Beyond really got kicked off with some of our early Secret Lair drops, and I think we had probably teased the announcement of Lord of the Rings, and Square Enix had, initially kind of showed interest in wanting to be the next IP to come into Magic. So we have a great relationship with Square Enix, but for the purposes of this weekend and today, we're focused just on Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy, our first set.
Name and outlet?
Richard Days from Square Review. Now, I know all the titles that came in the panel and everything, but one of my favorite Final Fantasy was not mentioned, Final Fantasy Tactics. Is there a reason that wasn't particularly involved in the card show?
Yeah, so when we were, kind of what Zakeel was talking about, this early relationship, when we were trying to figure out what this set could be, it could have been 1,000 million card set, and it was the biggest thing we've ever made because every single Final Fantasy game, including the spin-offs, including the other series like Tactics, could be their own Universes Beyond tentpole set. There's just so much content in there. So when we were trying to figure out like how do we possibly do this, we made this discussion internally to figure out maybe we go with just the mainline 16 games. It's a universal language that everyone can understand. It's very easy to point to when we talk about what do you think of when you think Final Fantasy, especially if you haven't heard of the IP before. You can just Google it and you'll find one of those 16 games. And then we talked about it and we're like, okay, well maybe this is a reasonable point of focus. I mean, it's still 16 games of focus content, many of which are 80+ hour RPGs, right? So even in that capacity, in order to try and do justice to get what we talked about earlier, everyone's favorite character, moment and scene, and stuff like that, we had to find some sort of constraint to just make decisions. I'm a huge Tactics fan myself, and so that conversation was particularly brutal, but it was definitely something that I think was the right call so we could introduce our plan and do justice by everyone's favorite mainline game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also a huge Tactics fan, by the way. So I think probably all of us are. But having designed the set, there's so much content, right? Think about 16 games. If you took every character across all 16 of those games, that is more cards on its own than we could already get into the card set. So we had to draw the line somewhere just to make it doable and approachable. And while I love stuff like Mystic Quest and Tactics, and I'm a Crystal Chronicles guy myself, spent a lot of hours with Crystal Chronicles, at some point you just gotta draw the line. And so the set, we try to do the best job we could to pay off all 16 games. And while we couldn't even then get everybody in, like there's still some characters left on the cutting room floor, we were able to do a much more, like, I think, authentic and happy job that would make those fans happy, as opposed to like, well, there's one Tactics card in the set. Would that make you any happier? It probably might make you madder, right? Well, I want all my cards. So, you know, I'm pretty happy with where we drew the line on this one.
My name's Dio. I'm from Old Age is a Geek. This is a two-parter question. The first one is, I'm brand new to Magic the Gathering, so my general question is, my general question is, like, what's like a good way to like get people that have never played it before into it, like myself? And like, would you say, like, for the second part is the Final Fantasy collection like a good part to start if you're a Final Fantasy fan or you know of Final Fantasy?
Yeah, so I'll answer both those. So if you want to start playing Magic, there's a couple different ways you can enter in. One great thing for a Final Fantasy fan, you've got the Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy Starter Kit coming out with the set, right? 2 pre-made 60-card decks, Cloud versus Sephiroth, so you get to pick your side there a little bit, and it's designed to help teach you Magic, so that's a great entry point. If you, we also just released a set last year called Magic the Gathering Foundations, which is, I think, the best learn to play experience we've probably ever made, so it's a great way to get into Magic. And then finally, there's Magic the Gathering Arena, our digital game, that has an awesome tutorial and learn to play experience there too. And you can download that on your phone right now, just, you know, no cost to download it, go check it out. So it's a really easy way to get in. All 3 of those, all fantastic ways to enter Magic. In terms of entering through Magic Final Fantasy, if you're a Final Fantasy fan, yes, it is definitely the place to go. The reason why is, one of the things we really do is try and make the cards emblematic of what the character or moment in the story is. And that can help you learn just because you know what the flavor, right, is. So in Magic, for example, in Magic the Gathering, there's a card called Fireball. It's a little complicated, but if you've ever played D&D, you see a Fireball, you're like, oh, yeah, I get what this card does immediately. And the same is true in Final Fantasy, where if you see some of these cards, you'll be like, yeah, that is what Cloud should do. Of course he's carrying a big equipment. That makes total sense, right? So it really paths you in a really nice way. So absolutely, come and join us. If you're a Final Fantasy fan, this is your time to enter Magic. We have open arms ready and waiting for you.
I'm sure with the starter pack that was in the bags, I have a friend out in Indiana that's going to be extremely happy that I got that.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
awesome.
Be super happy.
Yeah,
that
get
I
some
got
games
that.
in.
Glad to hear.
welcome to the journey, my friend. Welcome to the journey.
Who's next? Yeah, say your name and Ella.
I'm Hillary Andrew with RPG Fan, and just going off some of these other recent questions, I'm really curious to hear if you can share one thing that was from Final Fantasy that kind of was on the cutting room floor that you wish had made it into the set. Because there's so much.
It
The
was.
heartbreak.
I'll say it was so hard. Figuring out the top level stuff, like as Dillon kind of talked about in the panel and has talked about a little bit. You know, there were in the press briefer, there were 3 kind of tiers of characters that we had to kind of figure out how to put into the set. Tier 1 and 2 mostly all made it for the most part, but it was the tier 3 stuff, like our deep cuts, where we had to kind of pick and choose between our favorites. And I think especially in some of the early games, like the first 6 games, just like, oh, can we really justify this character? You know, it's like we tried, and we found a few places to put them. For example, the starter kits have a few characters that are like a little deeper cuts, but there's a few people that were left on the cutting room floor there. I think Dillon, you probably have some opinions about Final Fantasy IV in particular.
Yeah. So as I've made very public, Final Fantasy IV is my favorite, and that is a game even before 6 that has a huge cast of party members, and a lot of fans or people who haven't played the game don't actually realize that. They kind of remember the core 3, the core 4, and maybe the twins, but it actually has a very robust cast. And so when we were trying to evaluate every single character that could make it into every single game, Gavin kind of already said this, but if we wanted to make one card for every technically playable character in all 16 games, we would have a full set of legendary creatures. So while I can't get into the specifics of exactly who or what or where, you know, was cut, there were definitely a lot of times where it's like, I know that this would make me happy. Am I just being selfish and forcing it to the file? Someone check me, please. Be like, maybe we should go something, you know, like we could probably, that could be a Moogle, that could be a Choco, that could be something that sparks joy and delight, and for a ton of people, and not just like the super heads down fans like myself.
Yeah.
The other thing that's tough too is some characters have multiple representations across Final Fantasy, right? Like you think about Gilgamesh, that's a character that has shown up in multiple places. So, or Bahamut, right? We chose the Final Fantasy X version of Bahamut, but of course that's a summon that's in mini games. So even then there were tough choices to make about like, all right, which one of these representations are we going to choose to show? This is tough picks for sure.
And while it's not the most satisfying answer, just building on what Dillon said earlier, within the 4 commander decks, we actually got to go into those tier 3 selections a lot more because I had 100 cards in each of those games. We still ended up with stuff on the cutting room floor, but there's also a lot more of those moments where you're like, oh my god, I can't believe they got to this. Like, there's going to be small moments, I want to spoil things, but I know I can't, that I think fans are really going to find enjoyable in those.
Last thing I'll say is that there are characters who had cards that did, we just need to make decisions, but I did find home for them on art. So even if they didn't get a card, maybe we got like an instant or a sorcery or an enchantment that depicts them. So they're still seen, they're not forgotten, we're not trying to like erase them. So whenever possible, we try to reflect that where we could.
Yeah, I'll give you something special. I love Final Fantasy IX. I'm a huge Final Fantasy IX fan. I said that during the panel. We did not make a legendary card for Aiko, who's a character in Final Fantasy IX who I love, but she is prominently featured in the art of another card, right? So it's like that's one example of how we did what Dillon's talking about exactly, where you still see them throughout the set in flavor text, in names, because you can't on the set be 300 legendary creatures. You got to draw the line somewhere. So by having, once again, our instants and sorceries featuring these characters, enchantments featuring these characters, we were able to kind of get them in there.
Yeah. I want to give props to Zakeel for one thing that we did just show, I think it was yesterday that it went up, is Secret Rendezvous in the Final Fantasy VII deck depicts the date of Cloud and whoever at the Golden Saucer. Naturally, we chose Tifa first for the deck, and Zakeel came to me and he's like, let's do all of them. And so you'll find those variants available. So we did not leave that on the cutting room floor. You can still get all of your dating options.
Even Barrett.
Even Barrett.
I wanted Aerith.
So. Yeah. Daniel put it a very nice way. I was like, yeah, it's Tifa, it's canon. And then Zakeel was like, no. In my playthrough, it's not. And I was like, all right, this is a great idea. We should do that.
Is somebody else?
Yeah, someone went through it from, yeah. What's your name and outlet?
Yeah, hi, my name is Stevie. I'm from Pitbull.media. So I was looking at the cards during your panel, and a lot of them were beautiful. They just look very pretty. So can you explain a little bit on like the design, how you make the cards and stuff like that, or the creative process behind it?
Are you talking from like a visual perspective of the art or the mechanics? Okay, yeah. So I'll handle that. So that's what my team is most responsible for. Final Fantasy, this might be so redundant to say, but Final Fantasy is a beautiful franchise, and it is constantly known to push the envelope of what graphics can be in a video game. And every time they introduce a new mainline game, it is a big deal because it's going to do something brand new and inventive, and it's going to push your hardware to its stress limits as much as possible. And so when we were trying to figure out like how we were supposed to live up to that legacy, we took a step back and we're like, Magic the Gathering is one of the like predominantly like largest collection of modern fantasy pieces, and we work with some of the most world-class, like best-in-class artists for all of our sets. And so when we were trying to figure out like how we were going to approach this, we had a couple of ideas that we approached. Mostly, we wanted to ensure that we were doing it authentically. There is a difference between like, oh, I'm a fan of something, and then like I live and breathe something. So we talked to Square Enix, and we were like, hey, who over there wants to work on art with us for the set? And that's like how kind of the celebrity artist program started. You saw some of the videos where even some of those artists were like, I get to work on a Magic card? That's so cool, right? And so we started there. We asked, who wanted to contribute over there, what kind of artists that they'd like to work with, who they worked in the past, they would be interested in. And then we worked with a lot of local talent in Japan who were fans of Final Fantasy, who knew the subject matter, and we could bring something that was authentic to the style, whether it was in the main set or one of our alternate booster fun styles. We wanted to make sure that we were paying homage to the fact that this is a Japanese-made game by a Japanese-made company, by Japanese people, and that is kind of its roots. So we really wanted to make sure that we hearkened to that, but also it is a global franchise that everyone is super interested in. So then we looked at all the fans that we have on roster and all the fans that the artists that we have on roster and the new artists we wanted to bring into the project, and we're like, hey, if you're a big fan of Final Fantasy, now's your moment, like now's your time, and we want to bring you into the fold so we can all celebrate this together, because no one is going to work harder on a passion project than the person who's in it for the love of the game, right? And so everyone just brought their some of the sketches we got, I was like, yo, this is a final. Like, you just went straight to final, and like, I guess we're done here. And so the passion that hopefully y'all can hear from us when talking about it, everyone who contributed at every stage of the project was already there. So that's kind of maybe why you're immediately feeling that, is because it wasn't just, you know, like a paycheck to a lot of people. It was like, I think I've been training my whole life for this moment. And you can see that reflected in all of the just beautiful art in the set.
One of the things that I think this set, there's one new challenge that we had with this set is that if you look through the history of Final Fantasy 1 came out in 1987, but of course that game is made effectively with pixel art. And if you look at, versus a lot of the modern titles are of course fully rendered with 3D models and you know, all kinds of more modern technologies. So adapting like the first 6 games was a pretty big challenge, where we had the actual in-game sprites as reference images, and then we also had, you know, beautiful concept art from characters or from artists like Yoshitaka Amano that have existed for a very long time. So we spent a lot of time and effort working with Square Enix to be like, what does Furion from Final Fantasy II look like in modern high fantasy art? Like, we've seen him with pixels when he's kind of, you know, 22 blocks or 12 blocks or whatever. So, you know, Dillon and the team, you know, really spent, I would say, the greater part of a year and a half to 2 years, trying to refine that and make sure that they hit the creative tone that felt appropriate.
Because we were working with each individual team, so every team over at Square Enix, you know, they have 16 different development teams, and you know, sometimes they work in different games, but they have like very specific like placeholders in the company of like, this is, I'm the 1 team, I'm the 2 team, I'm 3 team. So we were working with all 16 teams when we were coming up with concept art, sending them early sketches of like, are we hitting your vision? Are we paying homage to the game you released, and does this match your vision of then, but also your expectation of now? And we essentially had to capture like the dream that these designers and developers had 20 plus years 30 plus years ago into what the expectation of art is now and illustration is now. And so it was a really fun process, because sometimes we would get like, in a very good way, we'd get some surprising feedback where it's like, oh, you know what, at the time we just threw a cape on this character because we needed to express that they were wide, but if I were to design them now, I'd actually probably not do that. So if you're kind of redesigning this character, like maybe you could go down on that, and like, this is kind of the silhouette I had in mind. I was like, that's awesome, absolutely, right? Because it'll still conjure an image that we all will collectively agree looks like the character we remember, because again, when you're dealing with pixel art, you have so much to go on, and especially maybe if you're a kid when you were playing it, you know, we're all gonna have a different interpretation of it, but we'll come together and agree that if we see Furion and how he's been rendered, that matches my expectation of the box art, matches my expectation of the sprite or the manual art, things like that.
Since each of you have your own favorite Final Fantasy, are you able to make a viable and usable deck just focus on each iteration? Like, my favorite is 13, so would I be able to make a Final Fantasy 13 only deck with just those cards from those characters?
Well, yeah, I would say that it depends on the game and exactly what you're trying to do. So, for example, we have 4 commander decks that are all themed around 4 different games, and so like those 100% ready to go. Some of the other titles, less so, but you can definitely make decks that have the headlines from those games. You're like, oh, I built a lightning deck, it's focused around lightning, I'm casting my lightning, it's got a few other 13 support cards in there. Maybe not every single card from Final Fantasy 13, but that's the headline of what you're doing. Yeah, for sure.
Out of like the entire process, what would you say was like the hardest thing to like work on from like beginning to end? That was like, it almost felt like it was a total nightmare.
Well, I wouldn't call anything like a nightmare, but the thing about working on Final Fantasy is that we hold it in such high reverence, right? Like, these are characters we've grown up with, that we love, that we've sunk hundreds of hours of our life into, and all of you have also sunk hundreds of hours of your life into. And so because of that, getting everything right, like an extra bit of onus was on us to try and get them as right as possible. So I think the card we probably spent the most time on over the course of the whole set was Sephiroth. Not because we couldn't come up with cool stuff for Sephiroth, but because we knew it had to be awesome. Like, it had to be a card that you looked at and you were like, that is amazing. That is Sephiroth. Good news, it seems like the internet is agreeing with the card you showed off, so off to a good start. But like, we put a ton of time and energy. We went through so many different designs for that card, and it was always like, nope, that's not cool enough. Nope, that's not cool enough. Ooh, that sounds cool. Doesn't work in the rules. All right, next thing, right? We were always iterating on it, and I'm so proud of where we ended up on that card in particular, because it is incredible. It is awesome. You can expect to have play against it, and be sad when your opponent has it. So it really strikes fear. And the thing that I love too is, you know, in the games, I'm sure all, or at least most of us have played Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth is this character that, yes, he's very fierce to fight against, but just him like lingering in the background puts this huge presence over in the game, right? You're like a little worried, creates this tension, and the emblem you get when you transform into Sephiroth that exists long after he's left the battlefield to me replicates that so nicely. It's like even though he's not there, you're still feeling Sephiroth needle you. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, Gavin touched on it a little bit at the beginning. It was that responsibility. I think that's the best word to describe it, because everyone's played these games. Some games they're more attached to than others, and like you can just feel that opinion from everybody in the building. Now it's everybody in the world. But like the early points of design, we have this much space on the card to try to capture all of these aspects of a character. That's why the snapshot method of showing the same character across multiple stages really helped alleviate some of that. But like the Final Fantasy XIV thing, I wanted to make sure I was true to those players, so I put that time in there. Hildebrand Manderville, everyone loved that character, and it's things like that that we hope to be love letters to the fan, that we hope we hit those responsibilities and don't leave everything on the floor that they are expecting.
And I guess if you were gonna like pick something to like really qualify your answer, like the nightmare would be like the nerd in us of being like, you have to put this in, like you have to get this in, like you have to do this right. And it's just like, it was making sure that we were all doing everything for the right reasons, because we had tons of conversations where like when you have a favorite thing, like all you want to talk about is your favorite thing. That's like why we're here at PAX right now, because we all just love our stuff so much. But we aren't making this set like just for us, the four of us, to like go in a room and play together. We're making it for all of you. We're making it for all the fans in the world. And so we really like wanted to make sure that every time we approached something, every time we asked a question, every time we came up with an idea, we were like, the fifth person in the room who's not here right now, what would they think about this decision? What is the fan of this game going to think or say? And then we would ask ourselves that question, make sure like we stopped and moved forward. So it's a little bit of a joke answer, but it was really just like the whole process was just a dream come true. It was amazing, and like the honor that we just had to work with the original creators of this game was just so like paramount to us that you couldn't believe you'd walk into work like, this is my job. Wow, this is amazing. How lucky am I?
I mean, really, one of the hardest things, I think the question earlier, was just figuring out who to cut, right? Like that was like, those were some tough decisions, tough decisions.
Yeah, I think the two rules we had during development were target for authenticity and then the rule of cool. So as mentioned here, like there wasn't any external pressure coming in on us to do it. We were the subject matter experts in the building, telling everyone, no, this is like the best thing ever. It's awesome. It's going to be amazing.
We were the internal pressure.
Right, we were accountable to ourselves. So like my favorite game is Final Fantasy X, and as we're building the Final Fantasy X Commander deck or designing the main set Yuna, I felt a pressure to like my 10-year-old version of myself of like, is this what I would have wanted in a Magic set? And I think we did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way to kind of go about that is you should recognize locations that you have only ever seen in pixel art when it is rendered in the high fantasy illustration you will see throughout the set. Your brain should fill in the gap pretty quickly and immediately. We tried to keep the main set and the commander decks very consistent amongst the art style, so the whole product looks cohesive together. And we have a number of amazing booster fund treatments that we've gone into that have expressed different facets and different sides of Final Fantasy. So I'll leave you with that. I think you're gonna recognize a lot of stuff that you only have ever seen as a pixel or a sprite or something that was a 32-bit parallax background. And you're like, wait, no, I know where that is. I've seen that cutscene before.
I have a commander question. I'm very impressed with how each set, every set, you have these really creative like commanders that come out, and it's to the point where sometimes I can't guess what you're thinking of next when it comes to your design ideas. For Final Fantasy, I'm curious. You could have made 16 commander decks, each one for each game, and they would have sold. I'm pretty sure. But so when you chose these four, were you thinking about the best game, mechanics? Like, what is the design process behind that?
So it goes back to Dillon's tier system, where we actually tiered the games, et cetera, where Final Fantasy VII is on everyone's mind with the Rebirth remake series and just the paramountness of it. And 14, the same thing, where there's so many active players every day playing it, that those two were the first in line to get the 2 commander slots. The rest of them, the other 2, we had multiple options for. Me and Zakeel are both Final Fantasy X fans, so we might have pushed the gas a little hard there for selecting that game. And then Yanni, the Vision lead before me and Gavin took over our respective sides, is a Final Fantasy VI fan. He asked for that, and it really made sense because it captured the pixel era as well before it went to the polygons. So it felt like a good swath of 4, and then from that point on we flavor top-down design, what the commanders do, what the commander decks do. Like for 10, I knew right away I wanted to reference that sphere grid battle system, and that's what led me to counters, which led me to, it was just kind of like a train of thought along each one.
The 4 deck themes also, I think you can break them out, that represent kind of 4 different eras of Final Fantasy games. FF6 being Pixel era, FF7 PlayStation 1, FF10 PS2, and then FF14 for kind of the MMO audience, obviously, that is adjacent to the console gamers, but has really a decade plus of history and millions of active fans. So we got just a very nice wide breadth of the entire franchise by that.
I played on a PlayStation, for the record, on a controller.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, it's a fun way to relax and play that game.
Sure.
Yeah.
Question: how many artists would you say collaborated with this project?
Just like artists in general.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of artists. We make a lot of cards, and and I'm not saying this facetiously. We make a lot of Magic cards, and each individual card needs new art for it. Especially when we do Universes Beyond, anytime we do a reprint, we need to do art for it as well, because we're not going to mix the Magic IP into whatever Universes Beyond IP. So there's 4 commander decks, 100 cards each, and then there's the main set, which is super big, and then we've got all the booster fun, all the alternate arts, and so once you start to stack all those together and different kinds of treatments and stuff like that, I again, with no facetiousness, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of amazing artists came to just give us their best work across every single part of this set.
Yeah, I want to elaborate on what Dillon was talking about earlier. I think Stephanie would talk about if she was here. The artists in our Magic artist pool and extended into UB weren't just fans of Final Fantasy general. They were fans of specific games at specific moments. They requested to do specific things if it was included in the set. So we just had these passionate pool of artists excited to work on the set with us.
It's funny, we have some artists we work with pretty frequently, and every now and then they'll be working on whatever Magic set we're working on or UBIP, and they're like, "This was so fun, thank you so much. If y'all ever work on this, here's my number." You would probably believe at this point what our Word doc was of everyone who said, "If you ever work on Final Fantasy," so it was like we were ready and raring to go pretty early on.
So, as a commander player, I'm very excited to get the commander decks. However, I do have a question about potential for a secret layer release of Final Fantasy cards.
More to come soon.
Yeah. We have announced that 3 are coming, but can't say anything else.
Soon. They are coming. Anybody else? Go for it.
One last question. So for me, Final Fantasy X, the ending of that was my most emotional moment, I could say, for that game. What's been your emotional or moment in Final Fantasy?
That's such a good question. I love that.
Do we all want to answer that and someone else start?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. For me, it probably is 10. I remember, I was 13 watching that. I was nothing more emotional than that, that was peak emotions, and I'm watching, Titus fade back into spoilers.
Spoilers.
Fade back,
A little lame.
Whoa. Just a dream. It's just a dream.
That was a lot of people might say 7 and Aerith's unfortunate incident, but that was spoiled for me in advance. That was such a huge cultural moment. I already knew that going in. But for 10, I did not know the story, and it blew, the twist at the end blew my mind. And then there Titus goes.
I've got 2 answers, so I'm totally gonna cheat here. I've got a single player answer and I've got an MMO answer. The single player answer is the epilogue of Final Fantasy IX. I literally cannot watch Vivi's letter. I actually can't watch it without tearing. I'm joking right now. It is just, that game is so amazing, and that Final Fantasy in the early days was really good about you've done it, you're the hero, you win. That game was so bittersweet, yeah, you won, but and just that Vivi's letter to everyone is just. Well, I remember we were talking about moments to reference and research, and I was doing a full playthrough of 9, and I had to emotionally prepare myself. I was I'm at work, I must be professional. 20 seconds in, I was sobbing at my desk. I was okay, we're done. So that's my single player answer. But my MMO answer, Final Fantasy XIV, the Endwalker expansion was designed for the player who's been playing that game for 10 years straight, non-stop. And it told such a beautiful story about hope enduring in despair, and that was right around the pandemic, and there was a lot going on in the world, and having some sort of control as a player, and this like payoff for investing my time into 10 years of game, the final fight, the final cutscene, I just felt like hundreds of Square Enix employees designed the experience just to like let me have something, and being there on the launch was so special because everyone was feeling the same way. And so those would be my two answers, but you do have to cut me off because I will keep talking.
Well, I'm going to cut him off there. And I'm going to say a cheating answer because I think a lot of the Final Fantasy games make you love these characters, go on their story with them, etc. And then when they tragically pull one away, etc., it does really yank at your heartstrings. Like the ending of 10, for example, is one that always brings a tear to the eye. And I think as an adult playing through Rebirth, the end of that, I won't spoil anything, but there's about an hour of the end of that where it's continually about the same thing. And I'm ugly crying by the end of it. It's no longer just sobbing. It's not crying, not single tear. It is ugly crying. My fiance's worried about me. It just hits so hard at all ages. Like I remember playing 10 when I was younger, and now this in my 30s.
So I won't give 10 as an answer, even though it is my answer. But I think I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy 15. I showed Noctis today during the panel, and if you read his flavor text, I believe it is something along the lines of everyone is given their all for the king, and the king must give himself for all. So there's just the ending of that game is very, very beautiful, and being able to kind of bring that moment into our set was very awesome.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
So, what are you guys excited about for people, either experienced Final Fantasy players or Magic the Gathering players or Unique players in general to either Final Fantasy or Magic? What are you guys excited for people to see this?
Oh, what aren't we excited about? Jeez, that's tough. I think it's important to keep in your mind. I know we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we've been working on this for like 4 years, and we've been thinking about it every day and chatting, and the build to this moment that we're here right now has been like this very long journey, and it's been truly an amazing team. We've all got to work together on making this. And we would be chatting at all hours of the day, weekends, whatever, just because we were excited about the project we were working on. So, I could say so many things. I'm excited for people to draft it. The other day we got to draft our first ever time we got physical booster packs in the office. We canceled all of our meetings, like everything else, sorry, and we just locked ourselves in a room and we got to draft for the very first time. We were smiling and laughing and making jokes about the card names and the animations and all this stuff, or being like, I remember we had to change this art or whatever, right? Like all this stuff. It was incredible. I'm excited for folks to try it out in Standard. This is the first Universes Beyond set to ever be legal in all formats. And we built a lot of really cool Standard decks with this set, and I am stoked for folks to try it. Especially a thing that we did that we've never done before is we knew a lot of people would want to play a lot of Final Fantasy cards. Like if you're a Final Fantasy fan coming into Magic, you might want to play with a lot of FF cards. So we built some archetypes into the set that we think will be decent in Standard. It'll need a couple other cards from here and there, but have a core of Final Fantasy cards. And I'm really curious to see if those do anything, right? I can't wait for the people to find those deep cuts that you were talking about. The internet threads like, oh my gosh, did you see this reference? Like literally, my favorite thing, we've been sharing these, by the way, for like months. We'll show off a card, and there'll be a Reddit thread. And my favorite thing is when it's like, someone who like doesn't know Final Fantasy, like, I don't understand what's going on here. Cue 3-paragraph description of the story behind that exact moment, right? Like the pure unadulterated joy that fans have in telling people about what they've experienced in these games is so high. So like, what are we excited about? It's like everything. It's like I want people to learn about Final Fantasy 2. I want people to play with Sephiroth. I want to see the bird deck pop up. I want you to find some weird little thing that you've never seen in your life, and you've been playing Final Fantasy for 15 years, and you're like, what the heck is this? I'm excited about it all, and that is the magic of Final Fantasy.
Well, it's really hard to follow that.
Well said.
But I will piggyback off of that. Like he mentioned those deep cuts. Like behind the curtains, obviously we can't say anything that hasn't been shown. For the Final Fantasy Commander decks, there are 400 cards there. We've shown about 12 of them, 12 cards from those decks, and we've gone so deep in them. I am so excited for fans to see those story moments that they think, oh, they're not going to do that. Wait, they did it. We talked about the Secret Rendezvous scene earlier. That just like there's so much joy packed into those, and I also want to see people taking those legends and building new Commander decks. Obviously, you have the face commanders that we've been testing and playing all the time, but people might take their favorite character out of that and go build a whole new deck that we haven't even thought about. People mentioned they built around Hildebrand. They're like, oh, I'm going to put this with Luris from Ikoria and as my companion, and it's going to be a sweet deck. I'm like, I didn't even think about that. That's amazing. And I want to see moments like that.
For me, because everything that we've said here is true, for me, the thing that I'm most excited about is for the Final Fantasy fan who has always been tiptoeing on the edge of Magic, being like, my friends play it, and like, you know, I know about it, but like, I've never really tried. It seems like really hard and complicated, and like, you know, someone like me isn't really like, I don't really fit into like the scene, and my job is to tell you, you are invited to this game. Not only are you invited, I will personally open the door for you and find you a seat and say, this is for you, you get to play, this set was made for you, we came to you, I'm gonna put it in your hands and say, like, this is for you. Enjoy it, tell your friends who are gonna enjoy it, and then make it your own game. Take your favorite game and play your own games. Make up your own games at home. You know, go to Standard and have a great time. Play Commander with your buddies, have a great time, make up your own rules, come up with your own emergent systems, or how you want to recreate an RPG battle system with your favorite legend. That sounds amazing. I just want you to know that this was made for you, and you were in the design room with us every single step of the way. So please try it out, please have fun, and please just... I almost started tearing up. Please enjoy yourselves.
I'm most excited for Jumbo Cactar to kill people. Because that card is sweet.
Bring it home, Zakeel.
That's right.
I got time for one or two more. Ready? Go for it.
What is, in any of the games you guys have played, what is the one thing that you missed, you then found out about, and you're like, son of a gun, now I have to go all the way back and reload the games just so I can get it. For me, it was the jet shot.
Ah, nice.
I didn't know Vincent could join your party in Final Fantasy VII. That was a real strange thing to learn when my friends were talking about playing as him. So
I feel like
turns out he's strong.
I feel like 10 has a lot of those. Jack Shot, like Anima, Yojimbo, Magus Sisters. When I was really young, you're supposed to go off on a trail and go into caverns to find them or do some kind of achievement. I just didn't even know that was possible. So I think when I then later on replayed the game and learned about them, it unlocked just a bunch of amazing moments to see the power of what they could do in the game, but also just feel very resonant and make Final Fantasy X the game that it really is.
I didn't know Go-Go was a character in Final Fantasy VI for years. I had no idea. And someone on the playground was like, oh yeah, there was this like time where you like go into this like big worm and you like meet this party member, you can recruit him. I was like, what are you talking about? Like you're playing like Secrets of Mana, or you're playing like another game. This is not Final Fantasy VI. I'm like, yeah. Like they came over to my house, you know, we had some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and we sat down, and he's like, yeah, go here. I was like, dude, what? And so I was like, what else have I missed? I missed a lot in Final Fantasy VI. I don't even think I played the game right at all my very first time. So after that moment, I was like, I should replay this game. And actually, then when I think probably because I was young, I was like rushing everything, like, oh, this is so cool. I learned that I think only experienced like 60% of all of the stuff that everyone wanted to make. I think that would be my moment.
I think I have to steal similar answers with like Final Fantasy VII about Yuffie and Vincent and how you get them. Like I remember friends coming over and being like, it was just like, you know, find Mew under the truck in Pokemon. It's you have to go here, you have to do this, all this, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I got it, and they have to walk me through all of it. And now playing through like Remake and Rebirth and stuff, I'm like, am I gonna miss it? Is there something secret I have to do, or are they gonna give it to me? I'm not sure. So it's like when you replay through them and you know those things are hidden, you're being so patient and careful to not miss something. I think that's.
I will say, I'm happy to report that not hidden in the set are Vincent and Go-Go. So you will find both of them in the set for Final Fantasy. We remembered.
Yeah, you don't have to
they might be somewhere in the box of Commander. You find them.
So you guys talk so passionately about this project. I want to know, is there a favorite card that you guys love? And can you explain why?
Yeah.
That we've revealed so far.
Yes. Yep.
Jumbo Cactar.
No way.
He's on the train.
I'll say mine and also give a teaser that she can yell at me later for. I'm going to say Tidus of the Final Fantasy X Commander deck, but there is a card not revealed yet that I'm still not going to reveal, but it captures that pivotal moment that Yuna makes in the story. There's a very special scene that I think everyone who's played Final Fantasy X halfway through knows this story and moment, and I got to make a new card for that reflected that, and I think that's my favorite card.
I'd say for me, since we talked about it today and I got to talk about it at length, it would be Kane Highwind. Gavin mentioned it during the panel, but it was the first card that I've ever designed, like mechanically speaking. Sent it over to Gavin. He was like, stamped. Let's go. And so, just because it's my favorite Final Fantasy, he's one of my favorite characters. He's just so cool. It captures a very complicated story, and for me, it's like the apotheosis of what narrative game design gets to be in Magic. That card just kind of ticks all the boxes. And even if I wasn't a part of this project, and Gavin just made it, and I wasn't on his team, I'd lose my mind. Like, no way. So I think that's my favorite card that we've revealed so far.
Yeah, I've been sitting here trying to figure out, like, which of my 200 children I feel like
it's so hard.
Fitting. But I think I'll go with the one at this moment that I think best embodies the whole set and the whole process, which is Sid. So the thing about Sid is there's a Sid in every Final Fantasy game but Final Fantasy 1, and we were trying to figure out how to represent them in the set or whatever, and I think nothing explains the process of the set better. And I was talking with Zakeel about this, and I was like, how are we going to choose? We got to figure this out. And Zakeel's like, why don't we just do all 16, or all 15. Why don't we just do all 15? Why not? And I was like, oh, that's great. And so, I feel like basically this is the set I've worked on where everything I could possibly want, I got in here. The rule of cool, absolutely, right? And it's like, Zakeel's like, it sounds sick, it sounds cool, let's just do it. And so in the set, there are 15 SIDs that are all mechanically the same, but have unique art from their game. And that is just like us being like, it's a love letter to the fans. It is actually like one of the most top requested things on the internet since we even previewed the set, right? So I'm so glad we got it in there. People were like, I hope they do this. And then we literally did it today, and people got super excited. And it really embodies like how much we care working with each other. Just like, hey, you want that? Let's make that happen for you. And I think it's really cool, and can't wait for people to collect as many of them as they can.
It also, just final anecdote on that, it really helped out because I ran a poll in the office of like, which SID should be our SID? And I sent it to every Final Fantasy fan in the office, and I got the most unhelpful data of all time because it was just basically a tie across, like all of my my spreadsheet bars were just like beep, 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 beep. Like everyone just gave me such conflicting answers because everyone wanted to see their own favorite SID. So I remember having that conversation because you had asked me a while, like, who are we going to put on the art? And I was like, I have no idea. And then I came up to you and I was like, I still have no idea what I'm doing over here right now. So Zakeel came in, totally saved the day, and it was the right call, right? Because that told us at the time that this isn't like people don't know what they want. They know exactly what they want. They want their SID.
Imagine if we only made one.
Really
awkward. I'm glad we didn't do that.
This would be a different conversation. Like, where's my SID?
Yeah, right. And I feel like it just embodies the set in so many ways. Like another thing we did with the set is, as we've talked about, Final Fantasy is huge, 16 games to cover, so much stuff. At one point, I just asked Zakeel, like, can I make the set bigger? Can I just put more Magic cards in this set? And I need them to be able to cover as many characters as possible. And Zakeel was like, fire it off, let's do it, right? So it is, the total set size is strange. It is larger than a normal Magic set, and we just made it the size we thought we needed to be able to encompass the stuff that we wanted to be able to create. So it's very cool, very cool.
All right, I think we're going to wrap it up. Any last comments you want to share? Just for... we're approaching, the launch.
I'll say, Dillon mentioned this earlier. We've been working on this project for 5 years, but in a lot of ways, I really feel like I've been working on this project my whole life. The comment I made earlier about like trying to make a set that my 10-year-old self would be excited to open and play with really, was the guiding light, and I think a lot of the course through development. So if you're a Final Fantasy fan coming into Magic, we hope that you feel we hope you feel the love and energy and passion from everyone here and many of our other coworkers at Wizards, because we took this product very seriously, and we just can't wait for you to enjoy it.
Yeah, if anyone's going to be at MagicCon Vegas, I want to play some games. It's going to be out. Let's play together. That'd be so fun.
We'll all be there.
It's going to be awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.